You're watching E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, we're going to talk about how I would do the next movie in the Monsterverse, or even the last movie. And this was a conversation we had on the stream over the weekend. Now, we had a lot of fun on Saturday. I decided to do things a little bit differently, and we actually brought some people from chat into the stream. So I want to thank James, Mr. L, Alex, Steam, obviously Runk the Funk, Zachary, for all you guys coming on. It was a lot of fun. And when we had the stream, I was talking to them about something I would actually do very different. You know, when we talked about the next monster movie, two common things come up: Destroy All Monsters or Godzilla versus Destroyer. And to some degree, Biollante, right? Biollante comes up a lot, and Biolante's come up quite a bit. I mean, this is not something that's new. I remember some of my streams from 2.5 years ago where people were talking about bringing Biollante in because she made so much sense being a monster of Skull Island, and I would agree with that. And you know, this past week, some of you know I've been talking about my book. I re-released my book onto Amazon Prime recently. And I hadn't been on there for a little over a year because I had tried to spend a year looking for traditional publication with very little luck and with some, persuasion of trying to change story elements that I wasn't agreeing with. So over the weekend, I contacted my co-writer because we're getting ready to start working on my second book now that, my first book is re-released. And once I start getting into that mold of writing and coming up with ideas, it really starts to trigger the creativeness in my brain, and I start thinking about crazy things. And I spoke on the stream about an idea of bringing in Biollante and Destroyer as the final two villains in the Monsterverse. And I told them on stream, rather than do Destroy All Monsters, why don't we do something opposite? I said, one of the things we learned in the Monsterverse is that Ishiro Serizawa always spoke about coexisting with the monsters, and that they're not monsters, they're animals. And while some of them can be pretty hostile, for the most part, most of them are actually good for the planet, are good for the environment. And we learned that at the end of King of the Monsters. So, I wanted to do, instead of something Destroy All Monsters, I wanted to do something parallel to, or complete opposite, and something where the monsters actually have to save humanity. And in this one, my idea was that Biollante does exist, and Biollante is part of the Hollow Earth, but she is she's kind of grown out of control. Like she is what we know her to be, which is a huge plant-based kaiju. And we remember in the original Godzilla vs. Biollante, she was rather large, right? She was really big. She was a lot bigger than Godzilla. But in this idea, I have her not only about that big, but also constantly growing, and that she begins to root through the Hollow Earth into into like the planet. And that if she keeps growing out of control, it's going to eventually destroy civilizations. She's going to eventually just overgrow all parts of the world. And rather than humanity trying to band together to destroy the monsters, humanity actually for once relies on the monsters, not just Godzilla, but all of them, to save the Earth, basically save humanity. And that rather than the monsters all converging to try and protect themselves from humanity, or even a human-made monster, an alien threat, that the monsters actually get together to try and destroy Biollante, who is pretty much becoming a hollow Earth-sized, eventually Earth-sized, just being, kind of think of it like as Godzilla Earth, right? You know that in Godzilla, the first Godzilla animated movie, they leave Earth, they come back, and the Earth is pretty much conformed to what Godzilla is. So something in that respect, that slowly Biollante is not only taking over the Earth, but it's kind of conforming to her. And Destroyer would be in this film as almost like a harbinger to Biollante. In other words, like, Destroyer is created like normal, like we all expect, through the oxygen destroyer from King of the Monsters in the ocean. A crustacean of some sort gets mutated, begins to, multiply. And obviously it can break down into different forms of monsters, and it can also elevate himself. And then in the movie, the way this happens is because of that explosion, because of, certain organizations studying that part of the ocean to make sure the aquatic life either survived, and they found the mutated crustacean. They started studying it, much like in Destroy All Monster and in Godzilla vs. Destroyer. it begins to evolve over time very rapidly. And the same thing we saw in Godzilla versus Destroyer. Destroyer starts to grow larger, multiple forms. So I would love to repeat that kind of scene in this movie. And then the only way the monsters could get back to the Hollow Earth is they have to get rid of Destroyer. Destroyer, because in this movie, I would have it so that even though he breaks down into smaller creatures, there's so many of them. And I would say, think of like skull crawlers on steroids, much bigger than the normal skull crawler, but much more powerful. Remember in Godzilla versus Destroyer, there's one part where Destroyer kind of breaks down and converges on Godzilla. Well, this is something that they can do in mass. And there's like certain elements of Destroyer that are just protecting all these different areas of the Hollow Earth to prevent the monsters from getting to Biollante and destroying her so that she can continue to grow. Very, very sentient Biollante, I would create her. Very sentient, very smart. So we remember in Godzilla versus Biollante, she had that human element, the DNA of the human, the plant, and Godzilla. Well, I want to keep that sort of human element without directly having a human involved in the creation. I don't want to get to that part of the story. I'm thinking in terms of the general audience, whether or not that's something that would be too far out there. And I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, they've gone this far at this point. Why even? But that's just how I would do it. I would just have it so that she has that level of intelligence. She has that level of recognition, but I'm not going to directly link it to a mad scientist who spliced Godzilla DNA with a rose and his daughter. Like that's not what I'm going to do. So, and I would definitely want this movie to be the final movie, Godzilla's final movie. And while there's monsters dealing with all these other different forms of destroyer around the world, the primary destroyer, the one that is really controlling them all, is the one that Godzilla has to take down. And they have an epic battle. And during the movie, Godzilla is starting to slowly lose his power. He's starting to kind of like the meltdown. But I want to emphasize in this movie that the meltdown, even though it makes him more powerful in one sense, it also makes him weaker because he's basically dying. And this is after, I would explain it that this is after millions and millions of years of battles, consuming radiation. He's just kind of reached the end of his clock, so to speak. And so I would definitely love to kind of call back to the Godzilla versus Destroyer fight. But the way I would do this is once Godzilla defeats Destroyer, and I would have that battle in Tokyo, by the way, then all the monsters finally go to the Hollow Earth. Now, the monsters I would include would be Godzilla, Kong. Kong would be kind of fending off the Hollow Earth in the meantime, while some of the other monsters take care of the surface, trying to get there to help him. But this is a movie where I would really highlight just how powerful Kong has become, like because he's holding the Hollow Earth down by himself until the other monsters get there. And obviously, I would have Godzilla there, and I would certainly bring in a lot of the legendary monsters. Like I would still bring in Rodan and Mothra because they're there. We know Rodan's still alive. We know Mothra has a tendency to be reborn. And I would certainly bring those two in, as well as Behemoth, Methuselah, a lot of the remaining monsters that Legendary introduced. And these monsters finally, after Godzilla defeats Destroyer, all these monsters are able to go into the Hollow Earth to go after Biollante. And it becomes this big fight scene where all these monsters are trying to get to the center of what Biollante is, which is her core, the very same core that you see in the movie, like Godzilla vs. Biollante. I would definitely replicate that look, but on a much larger scale with many more tentacles that you can just see going through the sky and the Hollow Earth. And basically the monsters are all fighting off these huge tentacles. Like you see Kong with his axe cutting through, and maybe there's a scene where some of the monsters are wrapped up in different vines, and you see Kong cutting them up. It would just be this epic battle to get to the center of Biollante. When they do, there's this large monster with this large trap, and maybe some of the other monsters die on their way in. And then you know how Biollante in the original look has like this kind of, I don't want to say lights out. I'm calling it a core for lack of a better word, but under her mouth is that center there, and that's the center they have to destroy to kill her. And no matter how close they try to get, there's other vines that pop in and block them. Finally, Godzilla does like his final big attack, and this is the scene everybody's wanted, that red spiral beam. And basically what he does is he charges up this final large atomic breath, and he blasts it at the core of Biollante, and she tries to block it with all her tentacles coming in, like all these vines and all that. And then what happens is Kong comes in and he takes the axe and he cuts off the atomic breath to charge his axe, and then he pulls it back and his axe is glowing like bright red. And as Godzilla is blasting through the vines, now Kong comes in and he starts cutting it up. And then they finally break through, and a combination of Godzilla's atomic breath with Kong cutting the core and destroying Biollante. And at this point, that would be like Godzilla's heroic death. And then I would finalize it with providing Kong with his name, King Kong. And now he's king of the Hollow Earth and the Earth. And I know some people are not going to like that. Oh, Godzilla. But I don't know. I'd find it personally, and again, this is just how I would do it. I find it personally as a very poetic ending to Godzilla being the ultimate hero, having the ultimate power to be able to destroy something as threatening as what Biollante is, being able to deal with a monster as powerful as Destroyer, and then everything else he's done for humanity, and then almost kind of inadvertently handing the reins over to King Kong because, you know, they've went from being complete adversaries to being able to work together to defeat the ultimate enemy to save the Earth and to save the Hollow Earth, which is also Kong's home. So, but anyway, guys, that's my crazy how I would do it if I was doing a final movie. A lot of people seem to be pretty receptive to the idea on stream, and I know not everybody makes it to stream, so I wanted to share it here and see what you guys thought. So let me know in the comments below, but that is it. You know, I'll probably do a poll if people want me to actually write out and do a short story like this, you know, something I could either do on a video or do on stream or both, like actually write it out in detail how the events would play out, some story elements, maybe some characters. I'd be more than happy to do that just for the fun. And then once I'm done, we can talk about it on stream, and I'll do it a video so that, again, those who don't make it to stream can check it out. But otherwise, that's it. Looking forward to seeing what you guys think, or even sharing some of your ideas or some of your implementations. And then, like I said, maybe like the end of this week, going to the weekend, I'll do a poll and on the community board here on the channel, letting me know, voting, do you want me to actually make this into a short story that I'll write out in more detail and share with everybody when I'm done or not? And then we'll go from there. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching E.T.N. Click here to watch more content. Don't forget to leave a comment. Also, make sure you like and share this video. If you want to know when the next video is up, click the notification bell next to the subscribe button. And most of all, make sure to click that subscribe button for regular content.